Hey guys, feel good to be back here again. I am an unconditional love coach and a relationship healer. This video is a continuation of a series of videos devoted to creating, devoted to my book actually, chapter by chapter, a recording of. And this chapter is chapter 14 of my book, Ignited by the Bottle, Delivered by the Fist. And the title of this is Kiwi Conman Flees Australia. Yes, that's true. This actually happened to Eileen and I when we were farming in New Zealand. And so to continue our story from the I think 2 videos ago, and the last was an interim about one of our children. This happened. I explained that we started share milking or share farming in the Waikato of New Zealand. This is back in 1979. 2 years after we started contract milking. We started 50-50 share farming, share milking in the Waikato. We bought our own herd of cows and bought our tractor and machinery to operate the farm and so on. We're on a 4-year contract for 50-50 share farming. We borrowed $8,000 from Eileen's brother, her one and only brother, her eldest brother, the eldest in the family, and $8,000 just to finalise the deal, clinch the deal. He had it available, and we paid him 10% interest on their money over that 4-year period. So what happened was on our 4-year contract, between year 1 and year 2, our internal costs on our dairy farm, our business, operating as share farmers, our costs doubled in 1 year. But our payout, or we get paid for our milk solids, obviously did not increase in line with that. So there was an erosion of profit based on costs and returns for our milk that was sent from the farm to the dairy company. So so that meant and it continued on that sort of vein throughout the remaining 2 years of our contract. Between year 1 and year 2, our costs doubled, and they continued to increase over that 4-year period. Such we got to a point we realised, well, there's actually no point in staying in dairy farming. We've got to look at some other opportunity, some other way of making money. At the same time, 1979 up to into the early 80s, interest rates were going up past 20%. And in fact, they got up to, when we, within 1 or 2 years from that point, we were actually paying 25% interest on borrowed money from the bank. So that was an insane amount of money. So, it was just, once interest rates go up to like 25%, all costs go up as well. All our internal costs on the farm, like fertilizer, bed expenses, and all materials and, calcium detergents and all the things we need, all the costs we needed to operate the farm, right? So all end up by something similar. So you can imagine that everything goes up by 25%, but your returns for your milk do not go up in line with that, then you're getting less and less profit. Doing the same amount of work, you're getting less and less profit. So, so we decided to sell a herd of cows at our end of a 4-year contract in the Waikato in Hamilton. And we were looking around for a cash flow business, like a calf lunch bar or something similar in the city, which generated a really good cash flow. So we arranged we sold our cows and we sold our machinery. And as we're doing that, my brother-in-law, actually, my wife's eldest brother, came along, and the one that he borrowed $8,000 from over 4 years, came and said, I've got an opportunity in my business. Would you like to buy into my business? And the type of business that he had was about mufflers, car mufflers, and what you call blue boy tube benders, which bends the exhaust pipes for cars and trucks and so on, and shapes them so they can be put onto a vehicle. And so he had a distributorship. So he owned the Australasian and Southeast Asia rights to these blue boy tube benders actually made in America, actually. And so he had that agency, so he shipped them out to Australia. He warehoused them in Auckland and a place called Newmarket in Auckland, and he sold them to the various muffler shops throughout New Zealand. And he also he started up another distributorship, wholesale distributorship in Sydney as well. So he was in the Australian market too. But he came to us though, and as we were selling up, and said, "Oh, I've got a business opportunity for you. We'd love to have a family in the business, and I'll teach you the ropes and everything you need to know about the muffler business and so on." So we looked at that. We looked at a couple of cash flow businesses at the same time, and they had really, really good returns, really good cash flow. And his brother gave us a set of accounts which showed, really good net profits. So we took them to an accountant and said, "No, it looks really good." So we, with the proceeds from the sale of our herd of cows and machinery, were able to purchase a house freehold without any mortgage. And way back in 1983. So he purchased a house in a place called Orewa in just on the northern part of Auckland for $52,000, paid cash for it. And that's after 4 years of share farming and 2 years of contract milking. So in 6 years from the time we got married, we were able to buy our house freehold cash without any mortgage whatsoever. So when we did that, though, we borrowed against the house to purchase and to buy into my wife's brother's business. And he said, "I've got a business partner that's been managing my operation in Sydney. He's coming back to New Zealand, and he'll buy 50% share of the business, and so you'll both have 50% share each." All right. So that was that. So when it got to the point of changeover and stuff like that, this chap that came into the business as 50% partner, he and I went to the bank to open up our business account. And so we had to have our share certificates and so on there to show the bank manager, so it's all legitimate and so on. So, so long story short, this particular chap that Larry had put into half shares had not paid up the same amount of money as us to buy his 50% share. And when we contacted Eileen's brother, he said, "Oh, well, I actually owed this guy money, owed him some money in Australia, for his role in managing the business. So therefore, I'm saying that he's paid his half share." And but when I looked at it, I said, "Oh well," I said, "we've actually paid up money. You've paid nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm the only shareholder in this business. You're not a shareholder at all. You can be just a paid employee if you wish to stay on." So I got in touch with Arnie's brother and said, "Oh, this is not on. This is you didn't let us know about this before we got into the business, before we paid money over to you by our lawyer." And I said, "So we want out. We want our money back and to get out of it. Try to get out of it." And he said, "Oh." Arnie's brother said, "Oh, the money's gone. It's gone from New Zealand. It's now in Australia. I think at that stage they had like a letter of credit facility to make purchases back in those days. And when we contacted our lawyer, the money had actually gone. So we had to fight out our hands to get that money back. And but a long story short, it all turned to custard. We tried to get got a lawyer onto Arnie's brother and to get our money back, but was no positive outcome to that, to no avail actually. So we were back. So we decided to we actually went into the business with this chap that Arnie's brother put in there, and he and I were operating the business and so on. And but then we got all of a sudden there were different muffler shops from throughout New Zealand ringing us up and say, have you sold that secondhand muffler bender that Eileen's brother had traded in on a brand new blueboard tube bender, which back in those days cost about $20,000. And so the second-hand bender sold would have realised about $8,500. And when we said and there were countless people that rang up and said that we haven't been paid for our second-hand bender yet. You'd understand they've already been sold, but we haven't received the money for it. And so this was all news to us. It wasn't reflected in the set of accounts that Eileen's brother provided us with. And so we went to the lawyer, went to an accountant, and but cut a long story short, there was something about $85,000 to $100,000 in money owed, and we just said, we haven't got the money, we can't pay you. So a lot of these people, and muffler shop owners that hadn't received their money from their trade-in vendors, they said, "Oh, okay, well, providing we know what, like Eileen's brother, like his name was Larry, we know what Larry's like. If you stop trading, we won't sue you." So with all this, we decided we sold the stock off and closed everything down. So what that meant was we basically, without the income, and we had owed the bank money, of course, for the mortgage on our house. So we got to the point where we were forced to sell our house, and so we ended up selling our house. We repainted on the outside. Eileen, my wife, re-wallpapered it. That we did back in those days. They wallpapered inside of the house. I did that. My brother came down and did a couple of alterations to the interior of the place. We sold the house, and the only money we had left after the house was sold and the money was paid back to the bank was we had $17,000 left. That was the profit we made on the house. So with that, we went back to farming, and we went back to farming, not as a share farmer though. We went back to farming as a manager down a place called Wakatani in the Bay of Plenty of New Zealand, and we basically had to start again with next to nothing, no money left. But we had two children already, and Eileen was pregnant with our third child. And all this happened after Eileen's dad had passed away. He passed away about 2 years beforehand, and it was with Eileen's mum. And and of course Eileen's brother Larry, because he was executor of the will for his mum and dad, and so he was giving his mother advice, and Eileen's mother hated the idea of going to lawyers and talking to them, so she left it all to Larry to do. And he also owned a property south of Hamilton in a place called Tamahira. He owned 10 acres and a big flash house there. And he and his wife and two children, Larry's wife, he and Larry and his wife and two children were living in Sydney and running the wholesale distributorship, distributing mufflers and stainless steel mufflers and blueboard tube benders in and from Sydney around the various muffler shops around the country. So anyway, what Larry did was he said to his mother, "Mum, you can actually go and live in my house out of Tamahira. You could sell the home. The home was the home that Eileen's dad built many years beforehand. Sell the home and get the money out of the home, and you can gift it to me, and I'll invest the money in a place called Merit Finance, and I'll pay you the interest on that money in a roundabout fashion. So you can still get the widow's pension without any questions asked of banks or social services. So you're a widow, so you'll get a widow's pension, and I'll pay you interest in a roundabout fashion, so it won't alert the officers, so that you won't be. So in other words, you won't They won't take their widow's pension away from you, you'll still keep it. So anyway, she decided to do that, sold up the house and gave the money to Larry, and he went out and lived at this place in Tamahiri, and Larry had a caretaker out there, looked after the place and looked after his mother's wants and needs. And but what actually happened was when Eileen's mother's money from the sale of the house was given to Larry, he invested the money into Merrick Finance, place in New Zealand, and then borrowed against that money, took all that money out in his own name because he was able to do that because he was executor of the will, right? So he had all the financial rights to do that, supposedly on behalf of his mum. So all this was unfolding as we were gone back to farming, and Eileen actually rang her mum to say, "Oh, be careful. We've lost our money. Larry's taken our money, and be careful of your money. And this is we're down in a place called Wakatani, as I said before, back to farming." And so Eileen rang her mum to say that, and because Larry was the only boy in the family, and he was the eldest in the family, he was the apple of his mother's eye, right? So what Eileen's mother said to Eileen was, "It's my money. I'll do what I want with it." And trying to tell me this, that, and the other about Larry and what he's supposedly done and is doing. I trust Larry, and as far as I'm concerned, you're no daughter of mine, right? So this was, so therefore that started a period of 5 or 6 years where I never even had anything to do with her mum. And, but what actually eventuated from all this was, Larry apparently, was doing similar sorts of things, like, he got into all sorts of strife with his finances in Australia, and he got into becoming a really crooked businessman, actually. And he was falsifying invoices and refinancing equipment and stuff like that. So it got to a point where we found out later on that he actually had bankers on his back, saying to him, "Oh, you owe this, Mr. So-and-so, you need to repay some money," and stuff and all that. And so Larry actually, he hired heavies to go to these bank managers to say, "Look, don't hassle this Larry anymore, because we know where you live. We know you got a wife and 3 kids, for example, and if you want to see them alive, leave Larry alone." So anyway, to cut an even longer story short, Larry got away out of Australia with $27 million embezzled from banks and financial institutions through refinancing equipment that he did through all sorts of banks and financial institutions. Supposedly he got away with $27 million, got out of Australia. And we were just some of the small fry that got caught in the way. So we lost our money, and it was Eileen's brother. She was pregnant at the time all this happened, and then Eileen's mother turned against Eileen as well. And then Eileen's mother found out that Larry did the same thing to her, got away with all of her money as well. And when Larry left the country, he left his wife and his 2 younger children, little children, and basically nobody ever heard from him again. He disappeared. So we never got our money back. We had to basically start again, and so that was a horrific time for us. But we did get back into share farming or share milk again. Bought another herd of cows, and we're down at this place called Wakatani, and we were working on this farm, and a high-powered farm with really high-powered people in charge and so on. So did really high production, milk production I'm talking about. And as a result of that, a person I knew that was a farm advisor came, and we were managing this farm at Awaroa. It's an Awaroa demonstration farm in Whakatane, actually. And he came to us and said, I'd like you to share milk or share farm for me and family and my family, because they own multiple farms, and he wanted to go and share farm and share milk on one farm. And he said the reason the share milking position has become available is because the share milker that I've had on the farm has just committed suicide. He actually hung himself in the garage of the farm that we were about to go to. And so we ended up buying his cows and machinery. Then we started a 3-year share milking contract there. And so that was quite a shocking experience, to see this chap had hung himself in the garage of the place we were going to. But at the time, we were cash strapped. But the farm advisor, he still took us on based on our performance on the demonstration farm. We did really high production, and we're really, really top farmers. So on the strength of that, he took us on board. We took on the share farming contract, and even though we had limited finance, actually, I managed to get a loan of $15,000 from my father and mother to enable us to clinch and finalise the deal. At that stage, before all I'd said before was happening, we had court cases going against Larry, Eileen's brother, to try and get our money back, the money that he'd stolen. But it never happened. And the lawyer that we had said he's just a straight-out con man. And he gave a definition of a con man. In Larry's case, he said a con man definition is, he believes it's like a psychological disorder, like a mental disorder that he had. He believed that he somehow was entitled to the money from us, his mother, and all the other people he stole the money from. So that was what. So we had no joy in getting our money back at all. So basically, we're stuck with low capital input into the share milking operation. We were counting on getting X amount of dollars back, but it didn't happen. So we struggled. But we did a really impressive production and performance on the farm we share milked on in Whakatane. And the farm advisor that took us on board was tickled pink with our performance, and he wanted to keep us on. But at the end of year 2, my father came to me. He just had money sitting in his bank account, doing nothing with it, and that's where we borrowed that money. But he came to us at the end of our second season and said, "I want that $15,000 back." But at that point, interest rates were 25%, cash flow was at a premium. It was a struggle. But paying the $15,000 back would almost have broken our backs, broken the bank type thing. So put a lot of pressure on for a short period of time. So so we decided to. What we said to the farm advisor that we can't. We haven't got the money to carry on. We'll have to finish our contract a year earlier. And so that's when the farm advisor, his name was actually George Murray, came and said, "I'd like to have a meeting with yourself and my parents." And that's what ensued. So I'll just leave it there, guys, because this is quite an involved story. It goes on and on. But before I leave, I'll say that in terms of Larry, he got it, like I said before, he got away with $27 million in stolen funds, embezzled funds from small people like myself and Eileen and his mother, and also from banks and financial institutions. And they could not, so all the police and the people hunting him Because at one point, he was Australia's second most wanted man, right? That was my brother-in-law, Eileen's brother. And, of course, she was gutted, of course. Eileen was. It was her brother. And to discover that about your brother is gut-wrenching. Terrible for her to have to experience that. And but our marriage went on from strength to strength, instantly, because we had money stolen. For me, I knew that Eileen had a heart of gold, and she was the most beautiful, sincere, honest person under the sun. So never once blamed her at all, because she was pregnant. Her brother did that to her as well as myself and our children as well. So, as well as his own mum, of course. So, guys, I'll continue this on the next video. I'll leave it with you. I'll leave it there and say I can just love you guys. And this story is, it's unbelievable sort of story, isn't it? It's when family involved in stealing from one another. It's really gut wrenching. It's really hurtful. Hurts you right in the heart, I tell you. But our relationship did not suffer, because, like I said before, we had that unconditional love right from the word go, and nothing, no matter what it was, had any bearing on our relationship, the quality of it, the love we shared with each other. Okay, guys, bye for now. Love you guys. Bye.